Warriors are officially this year's NBA champions. Congratulations. I mean, it's a fantastic run. I did not expect this. Honestly, after the 2019 series with the Toronto Raptors, I fully expected this team to fall apart. I mean, injuries, everything going on, potentially missing on a number 2 overall pick are all signs of a dynasty falling apart. And yet here we are. They beat a team in 6. They dominated most of the playoffs. Stephen Curry was the best player on this team, far and above. He won Finals MVP. He didn't lose it to Andre Iguodala. He didn't have Kevin Durant on his team. He was the winner. He had a flawless victory. There's no reason against the number 1 overall defense. There is no reason to go against Stephen Curry in this finals run. But then a question has to be posed. Is he all-time top 10? And I'm here to not really figure that question out because that's for another day. I do plan on making a top 10 all-time video series in which I go through 10 videos going through every single player on my list, explaining why. Why is he in this position? Why is he number 10? And I haven't finished out my list, but I did start building up the script for it. And Stephen Curry kind of threw a wrench into all of these plans by winning the way that he did. And really now this entire video is going to be me comparing to the legends that are presumptually in that top 10. And does he have any ground to stand on? Does that argument still have legs, especially after this Finals MVP, something that people had used against Curry for many, many years, that he wasn't a Finals MVP. He didn't have that to his resume. And it's a big deal that he got it this year. The way that they did it, the way that they were able to turn everything around. So I picked 3 NBA legends, 3 guys that I think are easily in the top 10. Potentially one of them could be pushed out, but these are guys that a lot of people see as high as top 5. And John Morant thinks Steph Curry is top 5. And so I'm going to compare accolades. I'm going to dive into their impact, all NBA selections, MVPs, rings. And I have a couple graphics. They're very simple graphics, okay? And it's not the only criteria that I hold for him because not every ring is the same. Not every MVP is the same. Not everything is the same for them. But it gives a simple graphic of how much Steph Curry has to go to get to these levels. I mean, longevity is a big deal. We see it with guys like Tim Duncan. We see it like guys with Magic Johnson. They have the longevity, and they were great in their era. And I'm not going to say who is the better player. I'm saying who is the greatest comparison. I mean, when we're talking about greatness, we're talking about how good they were in their era. I'm not going to discredit a guy in the 80s just because modern technology wasn't there back then. He was great for his era. And that's what makes top 10 lists so difficult, but also really fun to talk about. And so to start this off, we got to give a baseline. We have to talk about what is the baseline. Why are we comparing Steph Curry? Because his accolades are truly remarkable. And this is not the only accolades that you'll see on the screen with this graphic. I'll list off more if I need to. But the basic ones is you have the 8 All-Stars, 2-time scoring champ, which is, in my opinion, a big deal. 4-time NBA champion, 1-time Finals MVP after this year, of course, 2-time MVP. And this is a big deal to me. In all honesty, you are the only unanimous MVP, whether you agree that it should have been done a long time ago. In NBA history, he's the only unanimous MVP. That's truly remarkable. And a 1-time steal champ, which I have to give credit to. I mean, a lot of people want to discredit Stephen Curry for his defense. I think he changed a lot of minds this year. And with a 25.5 points per game, 5 total rebounds, 6 assists, 43.7% field goal percentage, and 38% three-point percentage. And obviously, he has the 3-point record. He is known to be the greatest 3-point shooter of all time. And his impact is one of the greatest that I've ever seen. And he is a truly game changer for the sport of basketball. And I still take that into greatness. That is a huge deal. And so when we have to go up against these legends, these titans, you got to be able to compare stats and accolades and impact. And does Stephen Curry have ground? So the first legend we are going to compare to, and it's a big one, is Magic Johnson. Now, Magic Johnson is presumptually known to be the greatest point guard of all time, and Stephen Curry is the only guy that has really put up much of a fight against him. I mean, when we're comparing Magic Johnson, it is one hell of a feat to get even close or even a conversation with Magic Johnson. We are talking about a 12-time All-Star, 2-time steal champ, 10-time All-NBA, 3-time finals MVP, 3-time MVP, 5-time NBA champion, and 4-time assist champion, and 2-time All-Star MVP if you care about it. I mean, this is a great player. This is the definition of greatness. And when you compare it to Steph Curry, it's not really super close when we talk about accolades. I mean, Magic has all of it, including the impact. I mean, if you don't remember, the 80s almost killed the NBA. But Magic Johnson and his passing changed the game. Him and Larry Bird are two guys that changed the NBA forever, and they were the guys that really saved the NBA. I mean, we're talking about some of the greatest players of all time, and I love Steph Curry, and it really depends. When you want to say if there was an argument for Steph Curry, it depends on what you hold true to your heart. What do you believe? Because it's all subjective. This is all subjective at the end of the day, right? So what do you hold to be more important? Do you care about a guy that was in the modern NBA against much tougher competition, did not have as many championships, but was a part of a mega dynasty, but so was Magic Johnson? There's a lot of things that, like, say you are a huge three-point fan and you want to say, well, he's the greatest shooter at the point guard position, greatest shooter of all time, point blank, period. So does that equate to more than 5 NBA championships? Now, obviously, Stephen Curry is not done. He still has a little bit more to his career, and obviously he's aged like fine wine. So if he gets to 5 NBA championships, he really has an argument. But right now, it's so tough to compare because of Magic's longevity, and it's tough to compare in general because Steph Curry is not done. Right now, after this NBA championship, I say you can have a conversation, but it'd be an uphill battle still because of how good Magic Johnson was at his time. And he's a 6'9" point guard that in his rookie year was playing center for the Lakers and won an NBA championship. Those are things that you just don't see happen anymore. And they are both very different players. I mean, obviously Magic is not the shooter Curry was. I do think Magic's defense is overrated to an extent, and Curry has continued to improve on the defensive end for his size. On top of which, Magic's a fantastic passer. I think Magic clears him as a passer as much as Curry clears him as a shooter. And it just depends on what you're asking for out of a point guard. Say we're having a draft. What do you want out of a point guard? Those two are very different players. But when we're talking about greatness, I got to give it to Magic. I don't think it's a no conversation type of thing, but I think you can have some legs to it. So if we're talking about if this argument has any legs, I'd say you got maybe a foot in the door. Now, if Curry wins another championship and he gets another finals MVP and potentially even another MVP, I think you have a real conversation. Potentially, it comes down to preference. But right now, when we're talking about greatness and an all-time list, I still give it to Magic. I understand he just came off of this championship, but when you really look at the numbers and the impact that he had, I got to give it to Magic Johnson here. And that's no discredit to Curry. Curry is the only player at his position to really have a conversation. And that's truly remarkable because Magic used to be in this tier where you really couldn't touch him. And now he's catching up very quickly, and I think it's amazing to watch. But the next guy that I chose for this matchup, and it's a tough one, and it's really close to Magic, is Larry Bird. Larry Legend, one of my favorite players to really look back and watch. I never got to watch him in person. I never got to watch either of these guys in person. I'm too young, but I did go watch a lot of documentaries, go watch a couple of the games just to really enjoy basketball, and that's the big thing here. We're all trying to enjoy basketball, and this is just a fun conversation. I'm not trying to pick a fight. I'm not trying to start an argument, but I do think Steph Curry has more of a potential argument against a guy like Larry Bird when it comes to greatness. He has more rings, and I think Curry has a way bigger impact. With Magic and Curry, you really had the same impact to the game. I mean, Magic saved the NBA with Larry Bird, I would say, but I think it's presumptuously known that I think Magic had more of an impact just because he was in LA, all of that, right? And I think their rivalry is what really set it off. But Curry, I mean, give him the credit. I mean, when you go into a gym, why do you think you see kids shooting half-court shots, threes? He's changed the game forever. So I'm going to give it to Curry on that one. But I'm not going to discredit Larry Bird anyways, because like this dude has 10 All-NBAs, 12 All-Stars, a Rookie of the Year, two-time finals MVP, 3 all-defensive, 3-time NBA champion, and a 3-time MVP. So he has more MVPs than Steph Curry. But I think that there's more ground here just because Curry is the better shooter than Larry, and Larry was known to be one of the best three-point shooters of his time. Never forget when he was shooting threes during the All-Star break in his warm-up jacket. I mean, that's just cold-blooded. But I think Curry really, after this finals, solidified himself in this conversation of that 5 to 10 range when we're talking about all-star greatness, all NBA greatness, all greatness just in general. I mean, Curry, when we're talking head-to-head with Larry Bird, it's a conversation. I mean, Larry was an underrated passer, so is, I would say at this point, Curry's an underrated passer as well. But like, for Larry's position, I understand he was an underrated passer. And I think that really depends on what you hold more heavy and what you prefer when we're talking about the all-time list. I mean, it is really tough when we're talking about Magic because Magic has all the more accolades and everything that comes with that. But Curry, when we're talking about the Larry Bird, it's close. It's really close when you start to think about it and you look at the numbers and you start to really think of what they did during their time. And it breaks my heart when we talk about Larry Bird because injuries is what really hindered his career. His back just could not hold up now towards the end of his career. He could have had a way more accolades, but I'm not sitting here talking about what ifs. I'm not going to sit here and talk about what if the 73-9 Warriors won a championship. I'm not going to sit here and talk about what ifs. We're going to talk about what happened in the NBA. And from what I look at, I might put Steph Curry over Larry Bird. And that's not ridiculous to say that in my opinion. Now, I wouldn't be mad if you put Larry Bird ahead and you want Curry to finish out his career. But I think this argument has some real legs to it. I mean, looking back to think of what the accomplishments Curry did, it's truly insane. I mean, yes, you lose the finals on the 73-9 team. You still were that team. You still have the best record in the regular season of all time. He has a unanimous MVP, which if you want to count as 2 MVPs, sure, I don't care. But like, it's a unanimous MVP, something that's never been done. I just see Curry potentially, when we're talking about the greatness of the NBA, he's done things that were never done before. And I think so did Larry Bird. But during this time, I think this argument has some real legs. I think this is something that out of the 3 players, I think this is the best conversation to have. And I think, honestly, let me know in the comments down below what you think of it, because it's a tough conversation to have when we're talking about one of the greatest shooters of all time against the greatest shooter of all time. I think Curry could potentially edge him out. Now, the last guy that I picked, when I really started to dive into it, it's tough to have a conversation with because these guys were relatively from the same time, not super close though. Back-to-back eras, back-to-back dynasties. It's Tim Duncan, the big fundamental. I'm going to put Tim Duncan's accolades on the screen because it's something that is very difficult to talk about because he has the longevity that we have seen through maybe like a handful of players. I mean, he's ridiculous. And Tim Duncan, I think, could potentially be one of the most underrated or underappreciated players of our generation. And that's coming from a Rockets fan talking about a Spurs player. I have to give credit to Tim Duncan. And obviously, he has the same amount of MVPs. He does not have the same impact as Curry did on the game. But, I mean, the dude's accolades are ridiculous. I mean, 5-time NBA champion. And it's crazy to think about because Curry has 4. And I think he's catching up to Tim Duncan. It's just so tough because Tim Duncan, as a defensive player, was an anchor. Offensively, he was a fantastic player. And he continued to get better and better. But the thing is, where you start to have a conversation, obviously, the NBA championships. Was Tim Duncan the automatic best player on those teams when they won a finals? He only has 3 finals MVPs, and when you get towards the later half, the 2014 teams, the teams that went against the Heatles, I don't know if Tim Duncan was the automatic best player. You can't really make the sole argument that he was. I mean, it's a collective group, and that's what made the Spurs so good, is they were just collectively such a well-sound machine. And if you want to say Tim Duncan was the best player, then sure, I wouldn't be mad at you, and I'm not going to argue against it because that's not what this video is about. But Curry, he was the head honcho, and he was dropping all the points, unless we're talking about Kevin Durant, which that's another video. I mean, this is such a tough conversation. I think when we're ranking which argument has the most room to grow, I think the Magic Curry one, I don't think is as close as people are wanting it to be. I think it's the closest all-time greatest point guard that we'll ever get to. I think the Larry Bird Curry one is a coin toss, and this one, it really depends on how much you want to give credit to Tim Duncan and Greg Popovich and the Spurs, and how much you really paid attention to how well-oiled of a machine they were, and what was Tim Duncan's impact. He had adjusted his role as he got older throughout time, and it's what made them so good. But then again, Curry continued to play at an elite level. As he gets older, he almost had a better season than what we had ever seen out of Steph Curry at his age. It's so interesting to talk about. I think going head to head, it's a tough conversation. I think that this has some legs to it, though. I think that you could have a conversation on who you would rank higher all time. It depends on what you would prefer. Obviously, this is all subjective. I keep saying it, but you could call me out of pocket. I think Tim Duncan's ahead, but you can have the conversation. I wouldn't mind talking about it. Let me know where you would put Curry all time, because we're at this point of the video. We're at the end of the video. This is just more of a conversation starter. I think this is interesting to compare these legends, because when we're talking about Steph Curry all time and people are saying top 10 easily, these are the guys you have to compare to. These are the guys that you have to bring up in this conversation. And man, after that championship, I gotta give Curry some credit. I gotta give the Warriors, this dynasty, everything, Steve Kerr, congratulations, because I didn't think they would be in this conversation. I didn't think Curry would be talked about in the same breath as Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Tim Duncan. And if you think I'm out of pocket for even bringing up those legends into this conversation, let me know what your argument is. You will see what my full opinion is in the later series when I talk about my top 10 players of all time. But if you're at this point in the video, I know this is one of my longest videos I've ever made. I am on the road to 1,000 subs by the end of this summer, and I'm going to keep producing videos like this. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day.